So I put every important concept in music production on this map. I don't really know why I did this, but I think it was just an exercise in gaining some kind of overview for it, create a bit of a resource for beginners to know what fits in which context. And then also at the end of the video I'll show you a little tool that I made that can help you learn about all these concepts. So yeah, this is the basic map. Just to get a sort of overview, this river kind of symbolizes the start of making a track all the way to the finish where you're live performing it. Then we've got sort of three main areas. We've got synthesis and sound making in general. We've got composition here in the bottom left, and then we've got all the different concepts in effects here in the top right. So let's just start with composition here. We've got melody, of course, we've got beats and rhythms, very important, harmony and chords, and counterpoint, which is maybe a bit lesser known than melody and chords, but counterpoint is basically the study of how two different melodies interact with each other and how these melodies kind of create harmonies just by having multiple melodies. Then we've got music theory, which is kind of a theory describing all these areas. What did people do in the past? How do they tend to structure their music? What are different approaches to structuring your melodies, harmonies, chords, rhythms, and so on? We've got lyrics and writing, of course, songwriting, writing a rap, writing something to sing. We've got musical ear training, like music theory, kind of overviewing this all area, learning to hear, okay, what do different melodies sound like? What do intervals sound like? How do I tell by ear which chords are playing? How do I tell by ear what kind of rhythm is playing? These kinds of things. Both the theoretical and the sort of more perceptual way of overviewing this. Then we've got arrangement, which is how do you take these musical ideas and lay them out over time? Which melody do you start with? Does the chorus have the same melody as the verse? When is a chorus happening? How many choruses are happening? And so on. And then we've got over here the land of sound making and orchestration kind of as a bridge between the two. So orchestration is just the choice which instrument gets which part to play, and when are instruments doubling, what kind of sound, what kind of timbre do you want your melody to have. So we've got on the one hand here instruments, of course, you can record, and vocals, both going into recording different layers of those, and then also different ways of sound design. So we've got subtractive synths, basically starting with a complex waveform, then filtering it down, kind of giving you a better overview of it, kind of shaping it to your taste. Then wavetable synths, which I would personally consider like an expansion of subtractive synths, because you use all the same techniques as in subtractive synthesis, but instead of starting with a single waveform like a saw, you start with a wavetable where you can morph between different waveforms. But most modern subtractive synths can also do wavetable, and they kind of blend into each other. Then we've got additive synths, which are less common, but they're a nice tool. Basically, you shape your sound from single sine waves. As you know, all sounds are made of single frequencies, and this is just adding these different frequencies. Instead of subtracting frequencies from a full sound, you subtract add many not full sounds. Modal synthesis and physical modeling are kind of similar to additive synthesis in a way, but instead of using sine waves, you use filters. So you input something like a noise, something that doesn't have a pitch, and then you use filters to create resonances in the sound and give it a pitch this way. And then we've got sampling, which can both be sampling like from a record, like if you're making a boom bap track or something, but also sampling instruments for things like sample libraries, where you sample every individual note of an instrument to get like a playable patch. I think these two kind of morph into each other. And then granular, which is a different way of sampling, where instead of just playing back the sample, you play back little chunks of the sample, which kind of allows it to be a bit more flexible with pitch and time and so on. And then you've got layering of combining all these different sounds. Like maybe you've got a wavetable patch and an instrument that you've recorded and maybe some vocals, and you layer them all together. Or you've got like a snare drum and some Foley recordings you want to layer. Layering and orchestration are kind of related with each other. Now that you've got these sounds, of course, you've got other ways of processing these. So you've got wave shaping, which is a very important, very fundamental concept, which is kind of saturation, clipping, wave folding, distortion, are all kind of names applied to things that are usually done by wave shaping. You've got things like hard clipping, like in a diode, or for gain control, you've got soft clipping. Tape saturation, for example, is a type of soft clipping. And then you've got things like asymmetrical wave shaping for introducing even harmonics. This is things like tube saturation, as you can see here. You kind of only clip one side of the waveform, and that's how you get these nicer, sweeter harmonics and tube saturation. Then you've got compression, which is similar to wave shaping but slower. So it's more about controlling the gain of your sound. You've got limiting, which is basically a subset of compression, where you compress the sound. You can see how with compression you've got a threshold and you try to turn the sound down if it's above, but sometimes it can still be above because maybe you don't want to turn it down all the way. While with limiting, it's very important that it just never goes above the threshold. And then you've got gating, where you're basically turning the sound down below the threshold. So you can see how it kind of, when the sound goes below the threshold, it removes this tail here. This is also known as downward expansion. Then you've got delays here, of course, which form the basis of things like comb filters, of phasers, flangers, chorus, all that stuff, but also of reverbs. This is kind of my attempt at visualizing how reverbs are basically made of many, many delays. You can kind of hear this if you just stack different delays. You will get a reverby kind of sound. Reverbs basically combine like these delays with all pass filters and comb filters and so on. And then we've got our filters here at the bottom, which is just a single filter, and then EQ, which is just basically a tool which allows you to have multiple filters, bandpass, peaks, bells, and so on. And overviewing this, kind of like music theory and musical ear training are overviewing the composition part, is technical ear training. Now, technical ear training is all about hearing different EQ curves, hearing different filters, hearing different types of saturation. How much is something distorting? How is it being compressed? What are the settings of the compressor? How much reverb is there? I have a video going into technical ear training. It's called like How I Learned to Trust My Ears or something. It's about ear training for producers. And then we've got this island here, which is something most producers will probably ignore, but it's the more technical side of how these effects, synths, and processors are all built, like digital signal processing, how sounds are sampled, how you can do things like a Fourier transform to kind of get the frequency information from a time-based signal, all that kind of stuff. You can get away with ignoring, but for many of us, it's kind of validating to learn more about this side of things. And then if you just look at the river down here, you see you start with writing, making your sounds, then you kind of have your sounds and use these effects to combine them together, which is a kind of mixing, and then you use mastering to get your final product by just kind of gluing it all together and treating the song as a whole as opposed to as individual stems. For both of these, if you choose to do them on speakers, room acoustics can become very important. If you just do this on headphones, they're not that important, but basically this is all about making sure that your room allows you to hear everything that you can actually hear. I go into this a bit in my video on phase. Rooms can just heavily distort the frequency response and also the timing of your song by adding things like reverb, comb filtering, delays. So this kind of makes you unable to hear the sound. And then finally, as the last stage, we've got DJing and live performance, which for us electronic musicians is kind of an eternal struggle because you never really know. Okay, you don't really write this music in real time, you place these samples down, you spend hours editing it. How do you perform it? Do you get real instruments to perform it and just kind of give them the composition, but then that will just not be the same song? Do you just DJ and mix between different songs? Do you try to somehow compose something live? Do you try to process it somehow live? What do you do for this? I think every electronic musician at some point runs into the struggle. How can I perform my stuff live? So yeah, that's kind of my attempt at a map as an overview. I saw these videos by Domain of Science, and then I have this stupid brainworm of I need to do this for music production, and then now I did, and I wanted to make this a much fancier video, but I feel like if I just go through it and talk about it, that's fine too. I mean, the information's the same. Now, if you want to learn about all this stuff, there's a resource I created a while back and I try to maintain, which is called producerlibrary.card.co. I will link this somewhere in the description, and I think I have it permanently linked in my channel. So basically what this is I spend a lot of time watching production tutorials on YouTube. I don't know, I enjoy it, but also it's a good way to learn for me because I don't really have any formal education in this. So a lot of these aren't very good. And it's really hard to tell from title and thumbnail if they are any good and what they're actually about, because there's all kinds of trying to trick people into watching stuff and trying to pretend you know more than you actually do and that kind of nonsense. So this is kind of me going through my memory of every video I've watched, which are a lot, and picking out the best ones, which I think actually have accurate information, which are to the point, which aren't presented in any kind of annoying way, and just listing these. So you've got sections on effects, saturation, distortion, wave shaping, dynamics and gain, so compression, limiting and so on, filters and EQ, reverb and delay. You've got sort of more general stuff, creative effects, general mixing, general mastering. Then you've got a composition section. I will keep developing this, it's still quite small. You've got stuff like melody, chord progressions, counterpoint, as I mentioned before, arrangement, then into ear training, which is the musical ear training side, and some stuff to microtonality by people like Savage and Jana, I think Eros or something, I don't know how to pronounce her name, but this kind of stuff. So I try to include also more edge cases, less used techniques, but all of these are tutorials I think are good. So I've got sound design, all these synthesis methods I listed. I forgot FM on the map because I'm a bit silly. Concatenative synthesis is very unusual and very rare, but I've still felt like this kind of resource should have info on it. I've got the drums, bass, glitch, so how to make these different sounds. You can see there's some stuff I still need to work on. Try to find some really good tutorials on. General advice. There's technical info and stuff like digital audio, so more that island at the bottom. If you really want to go into the depth of watching lectures about the maths behind it all, about the DSP, about the computer science of it all. I've got some stuff on analog audio, which is kind of bordering on electrical engineering, but not really yet. I've got stuff on dither, monitoring and metering. Also a curiosity section where it's sort of about edge cases of techniques, making waveforms look like images. Maybe you've seen the videos on rotating sound in a spectrogram, general explanations of stuff, panning stuff above and below the head, where it really goes into psychoacoustics and different filters in your ears and stuff. Some software specific resources, Ableton, Bitwig, Vital, Faceplant are just the ones I know the most about. Written resources, so sheet music and music theory. You can find the International Music Sheet Library Project, whatever thing there. So lots of free sheet music. These are all free resources. Some manuals of stuff. And yeah, that's it. Whenever there's like a tilde here next to the sound, this symbol is called a tilde. That just means this is my tutorial, which I included in this list. So if you kind of watch one of my tutorials and decide, okay, these aren't very good, this guy just put them in here to promote himself, what nonsense, this list is useless, I just put a tilde in here so you know, okay, these are ones I've made. I'm obviously biased on these videos, while these others are all by other people that I just think helped me a lot. and are very good resources. So yeah, producerlibrary.card with 2r.co. Check it out if you want to learn about any of these concepts. And that's it for this map, I think. So yeah, I don't know why I did this, but I hope you found it somehow entertaining or useful or something. See you on the next one, which is gonna be something a bit more practical again. So yeah, till then, bye.